episode 40, Financial Freedom Exercise.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
Yeah, he's here. Keep your pants on. Everything is under control, and we are looking back at a, totally exciting week on the very best podcast in the world, Personal Supremacy Through Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, L's and G's and P's and T's and Q's and I's and dots and dashes and whomever I may have forgotten to explicitly welcome to this 40th episode. And if my math is correct, we are completing 8 weeks of the very best podcast in the world, which I find totally exhilarating to have received enough feedback to actually get me through the day and to complete such a long and otherwise treacherous time of coming up with ideas daily to deliver to you, coming up with, most importantly, things of experiences I've made throughout my journeys through the multiple lives I've had, to then be able to deliver them to you in a way that obviously and in a positive way caught your attention, because the feedback overall was, insanely motivating to keep going, which is something for a lot of projects I haven't really received, simply because in a large quantity of them, I was well ahead of my time. So the people were like, wait another 10 years or, 2 decades maybe until we can actually make something out of those ideas of yours. And so this was totally insane. And no, I'm not saying goodbye. This is merely a review of the past couple of weeks, and we're gonna keep on going strong, I hope, at least. And I hope that you guys are going to be with me, and I hope that for you and for everyone out there, it's going to be an interesting time ahead. I've got enough episodes lined up with episodes of my journeys or experiences of my journeys to share in context to the 3 main pillars of this podcast: health, wealth, and happiness. Why am I mentioning all of this? If I'm informed correctly, we're either going to go to Apple Podcast Heaven or Hell next week, depending on the number of reviews that are on Apple Podcasts and the amount of 5-star ratings that are going to be there. So in that sense, and before we get started, would be pretty cool if you could take 5 seconds to click the 5 stars, or maybe you have 5 minutes to write and submit a review on how you like the show, perhaps what was your most memorable takeaway. I've seen one of those being posted in the review section. And I think that about covers the homework from my side, or what is it called? Housekeeping, I think, is what other people call it. So let's not waste any more time, because today we're going to talk about financial freedom. And that's actually one of the mistakes that a lot of people make when they start their own business, when they go into entrepreneurship. And yeah, there's many mistakes along the way that people make. I was one of them. I think I've repeatedly mentioned it, so I'm gonna kind of cut that short. Now, there are a few things I found out that are actually insanely important, but more importantly, I sat down with a lot of entrepreneurs, inevitably, and entrepreneur-minded thinkers, entrepreneurially thinking people. I don't know if that's the adequate way to put it. But here go a few things that I observed, which are very important parts of getting to a stage where you have or where you obtain financial freedom. Now, first of all, let's define what that means. Essentially, you can work your ass off. You can be well paid. You can have your health insurance. You can have your benefits. You can have your company car. You're working your ass off pretty much 168 hours per week. And at the end of the day, you're never going to get to what is called the investment class. And if you observe those people who are truly free and who live insanely long and not too worrisome lives, immediately people who come to mind are Warren Buffett, who clearly belongs to the investment class. He isn't working class. He isn't middle class or upper class. He is the investment class. So the peak of the pyramid, if you will, the all-seeing eye who keeps his information, most importantly, or who gets his information from tons of reading. And that's why one of the most important issues I found was to be reading daily. Now, this doesn't mean your WhatsApp groups or your Facebook pages, telling you how easy it is to make $1,000 a day or so on and so forth. Those are 99% of those are going to be scams. And here's the reason why. If hands down, if you had a way to make $1,000 a day, would you honestly share that with people? No, you more likely than not wouldn't. So keep your hands away from those people. The way you can actually get to the investment class is the subject of today's exercise. Now, that being said, exercise means that this episode is going to be presented in a way that it gives you actionable items that you can use, and it is deliberately put on Friday, like every Friday's exercise, so that you have the weekend, which hopefully you're going to be off, to contemplate on how you're going to execute the information you're getting in this episode for yourself to improve your life, to improve your health, wealth, and happiness, and to gain a supreme personality, I guess. Right, let's get started. We have a few points that we're going to cover today. So one is going to be to read, parentheses open, books, parentheses closed, daily. Then we're going to go into practicing a high income skill and how to make use of it. Then we'll get to the stage where you actually start a business. Then we're going to look at or a combination of work, but have a side hustle. Then we get to the very and paramountly important point, brownie points if you're going to, circle that with a star or a red marker or whatever. saving 50+% of your income. That's one of the most vital things you're going to have to take away from this. Now, then come technical things like investing in real estate and investing in stock market, in the stock market, and doing other important shit with your money. And no, important shit is not buying yourself a Ferrari or a private jet or whatever. That comes much later in the game. And we're probably going to make another episode dedicated to that. Now, a justified question, and before you're going to ask it, hey, Lars, why don't you have a Ferrari and a private jet? A simple answer, I outlined it in, I think it was the first season of the Questions for Lars episodes. I stopped. I was on a good way, and I asked myself the question, and you're going to have to ask yourself that question. Do you want to be rich? Because there's a lot of responsibility that comes with it. You're going to be working your ass off for the longest time of your life. And then you may have another 10, 15, perhaps 20 years where you can get the fruits of, or you can, rake in the fruits of the plants that you have sown, whatever. You get the point. So let's get started with reading daily, parentheses open, books, parentheses closed. Now, you want to inform yourself in depth about what you may want to do and what you can capitalize on. That's important. Knowledge is probably the most important asset, and don't overlook its importance in the choice of your future life. That's, pretty much the thing you have to keep in mind. Most importantly, reading increases your intelligence and broadens your horizon significantly also. And you're not going to get this information from the newspaper or any other gossip toilet paper. And for in-depth knowledge, you have to, of course, read books, but keeping yourself up to date in the daily newspaper is another very important aspect. And of course, if you're a celebrity blogger, you want to keep up with the gossip toilet paper. But the market is crowded by very influential idiots, IIs. Leave your hands off of that. Now, next we are going to look at practicing a high income skill and making use of it. Now, sitting behind a cash register is going to pay your bills. In some countries, at least part of them, because like in the US, probably you're going to have to take out 2 jobs to be able to pay your bills by sitting behind a cash register. In other countries, a lot of them in the Western civilized world, that's not the case. If you sit behind a register, it's a shitload of work that you have to do, but it allows you to actually, make a decent living and then actually pay your bills, have a vacation, cancel that because you were going to save money. That's the next step. You're going to be able to survive decently. However, it is now the cashier register job. Keep that in mind. It won't get you to square 2, and it won't elevate you to a position where you'll be able to save part of your income towards your financial freedom. However, jobs like that are usually not very time consuming in that you can use the job to think about ideas that can get you away from the cash register, and getting away from counting someone else's cash, and can use the rest of the day to develop a high income skill and make use of it. Now, a very important point is that you're going to have to be able to, in your mind, segment your day into 8-hour segments. So we're going to take the 24 hours of the day divided by 3, and now you have 3 segments of 8 hours each. Segment 1 is going to be the most important. It's for sleep and relaxation. Now, sleep is something very paramount to getting where you want to go. If you are the person that needs 8 hours, by God, take those 8 hours, period. There is no shortcut to extending your day, and you're just going to sacrifice too much energy by not sleeping enough. If you are at liberty to do what I do, which is I have pretty much the most fucked up sleep schedule on the planet. If I'm tired, I lay down. If I know that my sleepiness is going to inhibit me in, being able to fulfill my tasks or duties or whatever, I just lay down for half an hour, wake up. My batteries are again at 110%, and I'm going to be able to chug away at those things more productively than I would have if I would have kind of killed that half hour in a semi-trance and, trying to put together blocks that won't fit. Now, the second segment is very important because it is the 8-hour segment where you are going to be counting someone else's money at the register. Now, that's important because if you fuck up the job, yeah, it's replaceable and all, but you don't want that because it's going to cause you, sleepless nights. It's going to impair the so important sleep that we just pointed out. And so you want to be good at your job because at the end of the day, you're going to get your money out of it to pay your bills. And the less interruptions we have in the process, and this is a process, you have to look at it as kind of like a project management setup thing on a very strategic level. And you're going to have to be able to go through it like a train on tracks. You don't want interruptions left and right to kick you off the tracks. Now, those 2 8-hour segments are booked out. That leaves us with 8 hours, which is ample time for your side hustle. And that is segment number 3. Which is, most of your peers are going to be spending on the couch, binging Netflix, playing video games, and hanging out on Facebook, trying to figure out what type of potato they are. Or, they're getting wasted with their buddies in the bar or the pub or whatever. So these 8 hours, which are at your total liberty, those have to count. Make them fucking count. And that's where we get to actually the point where it gets interesting, where you're going to take the side hustle and turn it into a business. Now, you don't want to go all in. You don't want to go all in at first. It's still nice to have that job at the cash register to get you that steady income. And that's good to have in case of a clusterfuck. And unless you're totally experienced in business, which would imply that you're not sitting at the cash register, many things can go south. And I know you're smart and all, and I'm not referring to those things can go wrong. It's those things which are unanticipated. And when they go wrong, shit hits the fan. And that's going to be, in that situation, it's going to be nice to have something to fall back on, which is the register job. So first we're going to have the business as a side hustle, as I mentioned. And for that third 8-hour segment from before, and when you've made that happen, we're ready for saving 50 or more percent of your income and building a monetary cushion. And once that monetary cushion is established, then we can start with saving. And now we're getting to the part where I mentioned earlier, saving 50% or more of your income. And this is kind of like where things really get difficult. Now, when confronted with money, most people go apeshit and spend it before they've even earned it. You've seen this countless times, more likely than not. And it's pretty much a natural instinct to do so, obviously, because I've fallen for it as well. Now, it's important or imperative to resist this urge, and it takes a hell of a lot of discipline. If anybody knows, I do. When you're getting to a point where your money comes in, you have to immediately divert it to your savings and investment account, which you have to make off limits for purchases in your mind. That money which goes to the savings and investments account is gone, right? Long term. You'll have plenty to survive off of in your normal savings account. And that's your income and spending money. The savings and investment account is for other reasons only. And we'll get to that in, well, pretty much right now. Let's go there, because, I would be wasting time if I would kind of tell you another 3,000 times that that account is off limits. Now, the next point is investing in real estate. And this is where it gets interesting. We're now at a stage where we can invest our money, and justifiably you're asking, what am I going to invest into? And first things first, you want to stop that rent check from going into someone else's pocket every month, right? Why not pay it towards your own? So we're going to be looking for an apartment to buy. Nothing pricey at first. Pricey? Because most importantly, you want a roof over your head at first, and we want to have money left to diversify our investments later. No, we're not going to use the valuable money to buy the apartment that we have saved to spend it on the apartment. We're going to use it as security to take out a loan on to buy the place. And the bank, which is almost always part of the equation, unfortunately, may want other collateral as well. For instance, life insurance, because if you go 6 feet under before the apartment is actually yours, they'll want their money back somehow. So that life insurance, which they want to sell you, take it out, and do it. It's cheap, and it's something that is nice to have in case anything happens to you, and maybe your dependents can get a chunk out of the money as well, and are done for. So that's because the point is, otherwise you'd have to spend your saved money directly, which is not what we want, because we want to make further use later on. Sorry. We're still at a point in life where the bank makes the rules, and we have to play by them until later. We'll fuck with them when it's their time to be fucked with. Now, this first piece of real estate is going to be your prime object, which you'll have to invest into more likely than not, because we said we don't want anything pricey. Now, that's, if you have some handyman skills, you can nicen it up for yourself, or you can use construction workers that are cheap but have a reputation that's important, and make something out of the place you're staying in. And number one thing to keep in mind, it's going to be your abode for the foreseeable future. So you're going to have to feel comfortable there. And you're going to more importantly, have to feel comfortable working. There are other things to keep in mind before you buy a place. Does it have fast broadband internet? Because most businesses are going to rely on that. Is it in a reputable place? Can you afford it? There's many trade-offs that you have to make, but those are very individual decisions. And the second important thing to keep in mind for that is that later on, when you move out from that place, the more money and time you have invested to make it nice and decent, the easier it's going to be to rent out. Now, the investment in real estate part goes on in that, I already mentioned it, you're in different stages of your life. You're going to probably upscale the places you're going to be staying in. So a very important thing to consider whenever buying property is, can you rent it out? Sorry, and can you make money off of it later on by renting it out? And that's one thing you always have to keep in mind. There's this dude on Facebook who does all these flashy videos, and supposedly he's got over 7,000 units of living space in Los Angeles, and yada, yada, yada. Long story short, keep that in mind when you buy stuff, that, yeah, it's got to fit your taste and it's got to fit your wallet. But one of the decisions you always have to make is, are you going to be able to rent it out later on? Because we're going to keep it more likely than not, unless the property taxes are eating you alive, which in some cases, due to restrictions and reorganizations of zoning, can increase significantly. Then you want to sell the place. But other than that, we want to keep it in our portfolio. The same goes for land that you buy and pretty much anything real estate related. Now, this leads us to investing into the stock market and later investment decisions. And I see that the time is running away a bit, because I had anticipated half an hour for this episode, and we're definitely going to be kicking that in the ass. So when you invest into the stock market, those decisions are yours to make. The question is, do you want to continue working while you're doing this, or do you want to do this as a profession and have a few $100,000 or a few $1 million or euros or whatever working for you in the bank, and you want to be chillaxing elsewhere? You can drive this whole thing home with the real estate thing, in that you buy, $7, $8, $9 million, $10 million or euros worth of real estate, and you have a steady income of people who stay in your places and who pay monthly rent. All right. Then you have a few thousand euros coming in, or dollars or whatever, a few thousand, let's say apples for lack of better terms. You have a few 10,000 apples coming in per month, and that will present you with a decent living. And you can read all the books you want, you can do other business decisions, and so on and so forth. But then at that stage in your life, you are in the investment class. And what you do from there, I haven't been there personally, but well, at least not to a degree where I could, live amply off of that. I can make an okay living, but that's my personal decision, where I broke off with the business world and said, I'm done. Therefore, I'm good. I never probably need to work again in my life. I still do in some occasions, but I'm not what I would consider to be the investment class, right? That being said, investing into the stock market is pretty much a decision based on your personal risk level, and is kind of like the next level to real estate, because you can lose shitloads of money unless you know exactly what you're doing, or unless your wealth advisors know what they are doing. And that's for you to decide. Again, there are plenty of opportunities. I'm just basically outlining the road on how to do it correctly. Parts of it I have done until the stage where, well, I was able to save way more than 80% of my income for the longest, for quite a few years. And therefore, I am in the position I am in now. And yeah, I kind of reap the fruits? I don't know. It sounds so condescending somehow. I don't know. But that's kind of like the interesting road where I went. And a lot of my friends kept going and are keeping going. And they are at a stage where they have gone past the phase where they have to analyze the stock markets themselves. They let other people do it. They're wealth advisors. Now I got it. And yeah, that's kind of like another episode which we're going to have to move on to. But at this stage in your life, the one I just pointed out, you are going to be financially free. That's the point of this episode. And that leaves us to conclude for today, I think. Yeah, we barely broke the 30 minutes, so we're good to go. So yeah, in that sense, if you have questions, comments, remarks, feedback, whatever, please email them to theverybestpodcastintheworld@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter if you wish to do so. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on, what's the other place called? Parler, the new thing in town. So hit us up there. And yeah, if you don't have any further questions, I'm going to sign out for today and for the weekend. I wish you good night. If you have had a successful day, and if you haven't had a successful day yet, I wish you a successful day. Keep your hands above the blanket for the good night bit. And I shall hear you. Well, no, you shall hear me, or whatever. We'll hear from each other on Monday, when we are going to be talking about a totally new topic I haven't decided upon. In that sense, peace out. Have a nice weekend. Speak to you on Monday.